I was just looking up what embezzlement is, just making sure I know it.
I thought you were going to say make sure that I'm not doing it.
Oh.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Spacemen from Pluto podcast. I'm your host this week, James, and joining me are...
Ben!
Dan.
And Kristian.
Lovely stuff, boys. This week we're going to be talking about our favourite films that went straight to streaming, so your Netflix originals, your Amazon Prime originals. But before that, I know that normally we start you off with a little sort of catch-up of what we've been watching this week. We're going to mix things up for this episode because there's been some fairly, potentially quite big news in the cinema world in that Warner Brothers have announced that all of their 2021 films will not only be releasing in cinemas as well, but also alongside that, they'll be coming out on HBO Max. So all of their films for a year are going straight to streaming first, which is just mental when you think about it. Like, we all knew that we were getting the Snyder cut of Justice League, and that was going to HBO Max. All of their films, this is quite big, potentially quite a big gamble. What do you think?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a gamble because HBO Max in America at the moment is probably one of the fastest growing subscription services, purely based on what they've got to offer. I mean, they launched HBO Max, and then a couple months later they were like, "Oh yeah, and we're getting the Snyder cut, and it's coming only to HBO Max," and that's gonna reel in a lot of people because for years people have been asking, just bring out the Snyder cut, just bring it out, we want to see it. So
I'm really excited for it.
They've reeled people in with that, and so I don't think it's necessarily a gamble for them. I think the gamble comes for cinemas and the production companies and people involved who they apparently didn't tell.
Apparently, yeah.
That's
very rude.
Yeah. I mean, I know that Christopher Nolan's already been very vocal about it.
Well, some people, not, I think blaming's a strong word, but some people are saying that maybe the poor performance of Tenet is kind of maybe what's pushed Warner Brothers towards this decision. The idea that because this was Christopher Nolan film, they should have done well, and even that didn't. I think Warner Brothers are panicking a little bit and going, what if people just aren't going to cinemas anymore, or in general, what do we do? And I think this is the decision they've come to.
Yeah. Tenet was the big hope, wasn't it, for the year to rescue cinema, and all the cinemas in the UK at least were very much kind of pitching this film as come back to your beloved cinema experience and soak yourself in the atmosphere of Christopher Nolan and Tenet.
And dialogue you can't hear.
Yeah.
Ambient noise.
That's it, yeah. I mean, even if the film was outstanding and an absolute Nolan masterpiece, I'm not sure it would have convinced enough people to come back to cinemas because it was still a bit of a weird vibe at cinemas at that point. It wasn't exactly the classic experience everyone was missing. But yeah, Tenet was not a classic film by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, the weird thing about them resting all of their hopes on Tenet is Tenet isn't the best crutch they could have rested everything on, because while it's Christopher Nolan, it was a 12A. It was a 12 in this country, right? So
I think so, yeah.
PG-13 in America. It's not really Christopher Nolan's not really a family film director. It's not a film you can go and see that everyone would want to enjoy. I think the best hope that Warner Brothers would have had of having a crutch for the cinema would have been probably Wonder Woman.
Potentially. I don't know. I feel like in general, people like Nolan films. Ever since the Dark Knight trilogy, he's a director that gets people in seats, usually.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Tenet was just.
But it's
something.
not to stray away too far. It was in a year where the world was pseudo-ending. The film to save cinema and for your form of escapism is a film about World War III and the world ending. It's not the best idea.
That is a very good point.
Especially when you've also got Bill and Ted, which is all about hope and the love of music. and the song to save the world is out as well, and nobody watched that. So whatever. I'd be interested to see if anyone wants to kind of work with Warner Brothers again, because if it's true that these guys didn't know that the Wachowskis and Villeneuve and I think The Conjuring as well as one. Like, if none of them knew, would they want to work with them again? Will Nolan want to work with them again?
But their films are still coming out in cinemas, so like if
it's
they
on the
want,
same day,
if they want the experience of getting to see a film they made in the cinemas, they can. I suppose the big thing is what will really hit them is anyone who in their contract signed for a percentage of profits instead of a higher pay, because clearly this is going to affect box office numbers.
I guess there's also the asterisks of, the film will come out on streaming the same day as cinemas if they're open.
Yes.
It's not. That's not on there. It's not on Warner Brothers' conscience if the cinemas are open or not.
Sure.
I think maybe this is like studios preparing for maybe cinemas aren't opening any day, and we can't afford to keep pushing our films back and waiting for cinemas. We need a contingency. Yeah.
Well, I was reading last night on this whole topic because I was trying to find the exact words that Christopher Nolan said, which was something like, "Imagine going to sleep thinking that you were working for the greatest studio ever and waking up to find out you were being dumped on the worst streaming service ever."
That's burning some bridges, that is.
Yeah, basically he called out Warner Brothers big time, which is huge considering how much he works for them. But also Legendary Pictures, who are working with Warner Brothers to make Dune and Kong vs. Godzilla, two of the films that are going straight to streaming now, are already threatening to sue. Because they're saying it's a breach of contract that they weren't told that their films are going straight to streaming.
That makes sense, really. Yeah. I hadn't thought of that.
So Warner Brothers seem to have tried to find a way out of the economic problem of the cinemas not being open, and have instead now backed themselves into an economic problem where everyone could potentially sue them.
And they might have thought about it. I think Kristian mentioned it off camera. I don't know if HBO Max, it hasn't got a European or world market. It's not on anything else but America. It seems like a very closed-minded, domestic, quick gamble ploy that you're not really thought. It seems like they haven't thought about the wider consequences, but you think they might have. So I don't know.
If they don't have any way for Europeans and Australians and anywhere apart from America to access their films by paying torrent. It'll be absolute torrent city. They'll get pirated. They'll get shared everywhere.
Yeah. Even if they had the HBO Max over the whole world, you would just pirate it.
Piracy's going to be a thing anyway.
Why would you pay?
Because that's the other thing. It's once you start releasing new films straight to streaming, it becomes so much easier for people to pirate it, surely.
Yeah.
Well, you've got some of their films that are releasing in the same month. Or really close to each other, so it's why would you go to the cinema and pay £5-10 to go see Kong vs. Godzilla when you can just watch it at home? A bunch of the films they release it. I have no doubt that Dune going to cinema, will, it'll still make a decent amount of money, because while it'll be on HBO Max, people will still want the spectacle of seeing that sort of film in the cinema, whereas they're more throwaway films like this new Tom and Jerry film and all that no one's going to go and pay to see those in the cinema when they can watch them at home.
Which is really weird to send films like that to streaming, because it's a kids' film. So now, if a family of 4 want to go see that film in cinemas, they have to buy 4 tickets, maybe some snacks and all that. If they want to watch it on streaming, that is one subscription and you're done. You are losing so much money by sending family films straight to streaming. It's mind-blowing that they would bother doing this.
If they copy the Disney precedent where they released Mulan and what was the other film they released?
Soul is going to be coming straight to Disney Plus.
Oh yeah, that's right. They're planning to release Soul. Yeah, they're doing the system where it's something like £20-25 for
Soul,
a pass to. Oh, isn't it?
No, Soul is going on completely included.
Oh, I did not know that. That's interesting. That's really.
I wonder if that's because they did that for Mulan, so maybe it was a failure.
Maybe.
So you thought for Soul, we'll just dump it. Not dump it. We'll put it on Plus and see
Well,
how they compare. Maybe.
as of us recording this now, Mulan is now also free for anyone with a Disney Plus subscription. You don't have to pay that.
And has anyone here watched it?
Well,
No,
yeah, I
not
watched it.
interested.
I watched it 20 years ago when it came out.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. I think for them to, and you might be right, Ben, for them to scrap it because Mulan didn't do well, I think maybe just, was that film ever going to do bits? Was that the film to test out, does a system work? Maybe not. But does anyone here think that the idea of films coming straight to streaming could be potentially dangerous for cinemas? Do we think that this is ever really going to be the end of cinemas?
I mean, I think it's been a long time coming anyway, hasn't it? But the whole pandemic situation has sped up the process significantly to the point that we're at now. I think cinemas were kind of struggling to keep their appeal, with the advent of streaming and easy access to films in your own living room. Less and less people wanting to fork out money to come and see movies. So they tried to invent different ways to bring people in, luxury seating, different kind of deals and things like this and what have you, which seemed to be working for the most part. But now we have this situation where, what are the cinemas going to do now to make people want to come and watch movies? It's a difficult one for sure. It could well be a really bad thing for cinemas, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump on that with you and say that, because a lot of people are like, oh well, it's only the Warner Brothers films. It's like, yeah, but that's number one, that's 17 films, and number two, it's 17 films from one of the biggest, most major distributors of blockbuster summer films are saying, oh, and by the way, you can just watch them not in the cinema. If anyone else were to turn around and do that, if Universal and Disney decided to do the same thing, that would be it. Those Warner Brothers, Universal, and Disney hold all of the cards.
Yeah, I think it's a big move, and we'll see if it works. But I can't see it ever really killing cinemas off completely, because I think studios are going to want I think a studio would rather put it out in the cinema than streaming because it will make them more money. And maybe this is a bit naive coming from someone who loves films, but I just think in general people would miss the cinema experience. It's better, it's bigger, you get to make a day of it. I'll be honest, also, we can all attest to this having worked in the cinema, some people just bring their kids to the cinema for something to do. It's a day out.
Yeah, sure.
Sometimes it just kills time. There are so many different reasons that people come to the cinemas that you don't get from streaming. So I don't think we're seeing the death of cinema.
Going to the cinema is an event, isn't it? That's the thing. And my worry is that watching a film is going to become much like music. How music's become a very disposable thing now. People don't listen to albums anymore, they just listen to singles because they're quickly, James.
Yeah, no, big time
for instance.
for me, yeah.
No, but which is, it is what it is, because that's kind of the world that we live in. But I personally think it's kind of made the experience of an album release or music in general feel just more disposable. It's just content that is here today, gone tomorrow. And my worry is that films are going to become like that. This is just another thing that you stream into your living room and you watch it and it's gone. And that's it.
There's so many films being made, back even 10-ish years ago, it was a lot harder to get a decent film off the ground and make it yourself. Now, anyone can pick up a camera, make a film, and find at least someone who will help them organize and distribute it.
I think that's a stretch.
It is a stretch, yeah.
As someone who did a whole degree with people who want to make films, it's not just as easy as you pick up a camera and someone will pay you to do it. It's hard to get a film off the ground. Ben, what do you think on all this?
I don't think cinemas are going to go away. Maybe not just yet.
Yeah.
I think it might be at least a decade away, but I do think they will evolve. I wonder if they will become more like a theatre, where they're not really open 9 to 5 like a shop. the more open, like it's almost like one viewing, like a play, like it's on.
Yeah.
There's one viewing in the evening. Funnily
Yeah,
enough,
yeah.
I kind of feel like a place like Home in Manchester might still survive because they show films that are almost not even on
I was
streaming.
about to say that they aren't going to be
Yeah,
affected
yeah.
by this because they're not really showing Warner Brothers anyway.
Yeah, so they might be. Well, if they don't shut
Well,
while
yeah.
everybody else is shut, if they can survive
Yeah.
the lockdown. But I kind of hope, because what we had this glorious period just before we closed again where they showed loads of old movies. I really want that to be a constant thing, the norm.
Yeah.
That will help people come back. Just keep showing old stuff. And loads of people will want to see their childhood favourites or classics in the cinema on the big screen.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like most cinemas do weekly things where they have like special films, and they'll have, like I know that a few of them around here do like, oh yeah, we're going to do a one-off showing of a Japanese anime film, or we're going to do a one-off showing of an Indian Bollywood film. They should start doing like a weekly, even if it's just once a week, one day, one film, where it's an old classic that you can come back to the cinema to see, because that would 100% help people come back to the cinema.
I think realistically, it's going to be a case of we see what 2021 brings. Do Warner Brothers do well from it? Do they carry on doing this? And I think that's all we really can do for now, is just wait and see. But I think that's probably a nice place to move on to the main topic of this. And after we've all just sat there and said, will cinemas survive? Let's talk about the films that are potentially killing the cinemas. And some of our favourite films that went straight to streaming. Does anyone want to kick us off? Although maybe we should talk about Mank, seeing as we spent
We've gotta talk about
we spent a whole podcast about it last week, and
We've
now
gotta talk about
now
Mank.
we've gone away and watched it. What did we all think?
Well, right, so I was a big pusher that we all should watch and talk about it because it was the new Fincher film, and he has set a bit of a bar of himself, some better than others, and the bar is quite high.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean he should hit it every time, but the bar is quite high. So there's an innate expectation when you're going into the new Fincher film, and it's like, oh, Gary Oldman's in it, and it's about the writing of Citizen Kane. So this is big stuff.
Is it though?
And well, the opening credits were starting, and I was sitting there, and then it said screenplay by Jack Fincher, and I went, oh no, because at first I thought, Fincher's about mid-40s to maybe he's 50s now. His son might be in his 20s, so he's written it with his son. It's this passion project, and Netflix have gone, Fincher, we love you. We'll let you make whatever you want, regardless of quality. Yeah, regardless of the quality, and you can write it with your son and whatever. I was kind of half right. It's his dad's screenplay, but his dad has passed away, and he wrote it in the 90s. And Fincher's been trying to make this film since the mid-90s.
I did not know any of
So
this.
Netflix have clearly run to him, going, Fincher, we'll do whatever you want. And he's gone, I want to make my passion project.
Yeah.
And nobody's gone. It's like Jurassic Park. Nobody stopped to go whether you should.
They were too concerned about whether they could.
Yeah, and oh dear.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that is what it felt like. It felt like he went into, like, Netflix called him in and they were like, we want you to make a film, and he's like, well, can I make my passion project? And they're like, yeah, what is your passion project? And he's like, it's a film called Mank. Here's the screenplay that my dad wrote. And they're like, say no more. Here's millions and millions of dollars. Like, no one read it.
It's really weird to call something a passion project. Use the word passion about a film that's just so dull.
So yeah, like you guys watched this film, right?
We got through it, yeah.
We pushed through.
I tried to watch this film, and I just got really bored in the first 20 minutes and just thought, no, I'm not really into it. I'm not going to like this film. The other guys will watch it. I'm interested to know, though, what was wrong with it. Is it just general dullness all the way through? Because that's the sense I was getting.
A little bit, yeah. Like, it doesn't really have a through line. It's cutting between the past, which normally is to set stuff up. Like, you have a nice plastic timeline to go back and forth and set stuff up. This doesn't. It cuts between when he's supposed to be writing the script and then just other random bits that have happened in his life.
Okay. So, James hasn't seen Citizen Kane.
I have not.
The stuff in the past is what gives him inspiration to write Citizen Kane.
Right.
So Charles Dance's character is the basis of Charles Foster Kane, which is Orson Welles' character. So that's what it's serving as. However, there are sequences in those flashbacks involving all the politics of the time, the interest. I'm gonna balls up a word again. The intricacies.
Yeah.
You got it.
Well done,
That's
Ben.
right.
The intricacies of like the studio system and MGM. Even then, I was like, "This is what." It's kind of nice to, a bit of world building, but I was just like, oh, I don't know. I thought it was about making Citizen Kane.
Yeah, that's what I thought, and it was very little to do with it. It was nothing to do with the making of the film. It was a little bit to do with the writing of it, and maybe this is just me. Ben and Kristian, did you feel like the film was made with the assumption that you understood and knew the politics that was going on? Because whenever they said it, it felt like you were supposed to know who won the election or lit it up. I didn't, and I just felt lost.
Yeah, you're supposed to have known the time, the real life history, and you've sort of watched Citizen Kane.
Well, yeah. I have seen Citizen Kane. It's been a while, but I've seen it. I did film studies. I know all about the studio system and how MGM and RKO and all that was ran. I was still getting lost in the back and forth of the story, and it's a 2-hour 10-minute film. I am not ashamed to say that it took me about 4 hours to watch because I kept pausing it and going off and doing other stuff.
Yeah.
And like
one of the nice things about streaming, you can do that.
But like that's the problem with it. Like it's since like Social Network, or especially Social Network, the dialogue is like a mile a minute.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they've done that to this, and it just doesn't quite, because it's not Sorkin. It just doesn't work.
It was also a thing of like they were speaking in that sort of like 1920s, 1930s, like, hey, see, kid, look at this. And it was so quick, I was like, I don't understand this dialect.
He's got a new motion picture.
This is what I mean.
Yeah,
so like,
he's a guy in a gap.
It was going so fast. I was struggling to understand it just because of the style of it anyway, and it's so much of it I feel just went over my head. But part of me was worried that was me. I'm glad to see that it's not just me.
I mean, number one, I got 4 minutes into the film and I was like, I'm gonna have to turn subtitles on because I am not following.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But then every sentence I felt like I was having to analyze it to be like, but what does this mean? Like, how does this fit into the plot? Like, the message of the plot to me did not come until about 45 minutes before the end,
or like 5 minutes in, because
it had a decent end.
Because I think in real life it should have been about Wells versus Mankiewicz.
Yeah,
because I think in real life Mankiewicz wrote a draft of it, and then Wells took it and then really kind of turned it to Citizen Kane, and especially since the actor of Orson Welles did a really good job, I think, because Orson Welles is a very unique character. It's quite hard to pull off. I think he'd done a really, especially the voice and the cadence of him. I thought like you could have Gary Oldman versus Orson Welles in the making of Citizen Kane, and it's just him in a bed. It's just like, oh.
Like, I will say, right, I've written down some good notes. I love the soundtrack.
Yeah,
I love
the
I love the 1940s soundtrack, and I don't know if you guys did, but I watched it with headphones on.
No,
because that's often how I watch films.
Mm-hmm.
But because of that, I picked up on little details like every time someone spoke, you could hear that they'd added like a buzzing sort of microphone effect, like a 1940s film would have. They'd sort of muffled and altered the dialogue so that it sounded like a 40s film, and I was like, okay, I like this.
Can I just quickly tag on to that, Kristian? Super quick.
Yeah.
Like, Fincher clearly got in his head about, it's in the 30s and the 40s, we'll make it like a 30s and 40s film with the black and white, the cinematography. They even put in the black dot to make the real film changes. But then it's, I don't know, then it's like, because it's 2020 cameras, it just looks so high quality. it just doesn't look like like it's kind of like a half and half. Like, it looks great, but it's also got film grain. It just, for me, it just doesn't work.
This was where I was leading to. I was like, my problem was that the editing of the film and the way it was shot did not match a 1940s film.
Yeah.
Like, there was parts of it, like possibly the best bit of the entire film is where Mankiewicz makes the bet that I can't even remember which politician is going to win. It's at the big ball where they're already preemptively celebrating him,
So and so to win.
Yeah, so and so winning. The Republican winning, yeah. And I loved the 1940s like shot over shot style where it's just his eyes and you can see the glasses coming in and all the sound gets foggy. And I was like, oh, that's super cool. It's a really well recreated sort of feels like a 40s film. But then there was other shots where I was like, no, this feels. This is a 2020 film. Like you're going half-assed on the 40s style. You've either got to go all in or don't do it.
Yeah, completely agree. But
it's a film that's come out.
It's very meh for me. I watched a couple of reviews on just to kind of gather some sort of like. I thought I was crazy watching this. I was like, it's Fincher, and I'm like.
But it doesn't feel Fincher.
I wasn't. Yeah, it's very strange. And like people in the reviews, people are like, oh, it's clearly an Oscar contender. What?
No.
For what?
If it's nominated for any, it'll be mental.
Is this what I was going on about in the last podcast where people over revere auteurs, and this seems to be like a case of that. It's got to be good. It's Fincher.
We'll see.
No
reviews are properly. I haven't seen many actual other reviews yet.
And off camera, James was like, "Oh, I've not seen Mank very publicised. I'm not sure we should maybe talk about it that long." And I was like, "Oh, James is crazy. It's Fincher." I was like, "He's right," because obviously Netflix must think, "Oh, it's not that good. We won't publicise it." So
we have it on camera that Ben just admitted that I was right about something.
Well,
enjoy it. It's the only time that'll happen.
I went on to Netflix last night because you guys had said you'd watched it, so I was like, right, I'll watch it. I'll watch it for today's podcast. So I went on last night. The amount of scrolling I had to do through Netflix, like considering it's a new film, I had to scroll through so much of Netflix to try and figure out where they'd put it.
It was on the trending page. That's where I found it.
I couldn't find it on the trending page. Like, literally a couple of days after it's come out, it has dropped off the trending page and has been pushed into the backlogs of Netflix originals.
Like, you'd push, it's the Social Network guy, it's the Seven guy.
I think they did. It's just too esoteric of a subject. It's a weird kind of combination of you've got Netflix, the audience expect a certain thing from Netflix, and then you've got Fincher and a story that's quite niche about Citizen Kane, and you have to know everything about Citizen Kane and everything about the studio system and the politics, and it's like just a clash. And I'm sure Netflix probably thought, yeah, this is probably good for the brand in certain ways, but let's bury it.
I don't think it's on Netflix. That won't help either.
Well, I mean, that would have helped.
You just briefly mentioned the story. The story didn't really, like I say, it didn't really come together for me until the last sort of 40 minutes, where I was like, oh, now I understand what this message, the message of this film is. And it seemed like a really, really long roundabout way of saying Orson Welles is a hack.
but it's not. That's not even true. It's like, so what are they doing? I just like, I don't know. I just don't know.
Like the entire film culminated in sort of that Fincher's message being, and Orson Welles didn't even write Citizen Kane, therefore he's rubbish.
Yeah. I was like, that's just a bit harsh. He was pretty 24 and he made Citizen Kane. Like, that's pretty
impressive.
So, very strange.
Shall we move on to talk about some streaming films that we actually enjoyed?
Yeah. I'm sorry I pushed for us to watch that.
You did this to us, Ben.
The last time you pitch a podcast subject.
Who wants to take us away with their favourite streaming films then?
Go on, host.
Me? Okay, so like when we decided to do this whole podcast topic, I was struggling a little bit because I haven't seen many straight to streaming films. I've watched a fair bit like the straight to streaming TV, so like The Boys, The Mandalorian, stuff like that, and I really enjoyed. I'm just a bit behind on the films. Like I never watched Bird Box, I never watched Annihilation. I'm just a bit behind them. So I went away and watched a film that I'd been meaning to watch for a while. It had been on my list, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't know if any of you seen The Old Guard. Oh, it's a Netflix original with
right.
Charlize Theron.
I have not. No,
It's
no.
a really fun ride. So the basic premise of it is she and these 3 other guys are immortal beings. They can't die, and they've been alive for hundreds of years, like they're really old. But because of this, because they've had so much time on Earth, they're trained in so many different fighting styles, they're super skilled with different weapons and guns, and then they run like a little covert Black Ops team that go in and do missions that no one else could. And straight away, right from the start, like 15 minutes in, I was like, it's almost like this film was made for me, because it's got 2 things that I just really love seeing in film. It has a really skilled group of like agents or whatever running like an infiltration, but really well, like super quick, like running past guards, like slitting throats and moving on, like really quick and succeeding at a mission. Because I feel like in films, we often see it go wrong for the heroes because you need conflict for an interesting story. I like to see it go right. I like to see people like do well. So like, you know, at the start of Avengers: Age of Ultron, we see
No stakes.
Yeah, no stakes.
Conflicts.
But it's like
just
so when you
through.
say like these people are the best of the best, they're the top. Show me why. Like show me why they have this thing.
Right, yeah.
And then there's like when they then do get shot, we then see the like similar to the Wolverine effect where you see someone heal like super quick on camera, and I just love that effect. It's really cool. So yeah, I really enjoyed The Old Guard. I'd recommend you all watch it. I think it's like 2 hours 5. It's a super easy watch. It's got some really good performances. Charlize Theron does a lot of her own stunts, which is nice because you do still have your quick cuts for the action sequences, but you can tell that it's actually her doing them, so it just kind of helps ground it a bit more. It's just a really fun, enjoyable watch. It's quite Netflix in that it's nothing super. I don't want to say unoriginal, but like it's in a way almost predictable. Like it doesn't twist, it doesn't throw any spanners in the works that you don't kind of see coming. But it's a fun ride. Some really good action in it. I enjoyed it. I'd recommend it to any of you if you get the chance to sit down and watch it, because you can, because it's free.
Have you seen 6 Underground? James?
I've not. I watched the first opening sequence because everyone said how batshit it was, and when you watch it properly, how poorly it's made.
Yeah, it's a weird one. But I watched it the other day, and I thought, James will probably like this. There's a lot of explosions, and there's a lot of just general mentalness. It's really weird though. It looks like, I get what people mean about it looks poorly made, because it's directed by Michael Bay, but it does have a weird kind of cheap look about it. Some shots look like they're filmed with iPhones.
It's like if
it doesn't look right.
If you watch the first like car chase sequence properly, there's loads of continuity errors with like cuts. Like there'll be someone leaning out of a car window shooting. It'll cut to another shot, and the window's shut and nothing. Then it'll cut back and they're still leaning out. I'm pretty sure there's one shot where the car like swerves around towards the camera, and you can still see the plastic sort of perspex guard that's between the camera and the person. And it's like, why are you leaving? Like, there's just so many shots and weird things. It's like, why are you leaving this in the final edit? It's bizarre.
I mean, it is Michael Bay at the end of the day, and
That's
you said some of it seems like it's shot on an iPhone.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past Michael Bay to be like that. He's like, yeah, I shot half of this film on an iPhone, and it's like, why? And he's like, 'cause I could, and it's like, but should you have? Just to throw something in there, I remember years ago when the Gorillaz were like, oh yeah, and our next album, we wrote and produced the entire album on an iPad, and it's like, okay, why? And they're like, 'cause we could, and it's like, yeah, but it's not a very good album. And they're like, but it was made on an iPad, and I'm like, that doesn't make it a good album.
It's a gimmick that gets people in. Like people who would not have listened to it before will be like, oh, made on an iPad. Let's listen to see if it's any good. Oh, it's not. Well, I've already listened to that.
I've given them my money.
One thing
Trash.
one last thing I will say about Old Guard, and it leads into this whole topic of streaming versus cinemas. I really enjoyed it. I've recommended it to other people, but when I was trying to compare it to other films I've seen this year, like new films, I'm like, even though I enjoyed it, I don't feel like I can put it above this film because the experience of seeing that film in the cinema was just so much better.
Oh, right. Good callback.
Well, that's what you want from your cinema experience, the big screen experience, isn't it? It's kind of something's lost when you watch it on a tiny screen. Well, comparatively small screen, anyway.
Who else wants to take us away then?
I thought Danny was going to go for it then. I thought... I thought he's going to... Off he goes. Stop talking.
I just smoothly transition into
shall I quickly say
section.
one? Because it's a quite vast... It's like,
go on.
Fucking whatever.
No, go on then. No, Ben, take it away.
Because mine's like the total opposite of James's. I think it's a straight-to-streaming film. It's an Amazon film. It might have got a very limited theatrical release. I'm not fully sure, to be honest, but it's like on Amazon, so it counts. And it was made by them, like co-distributed and made by Amazon.
What's the film?
It's a film called Patterson by Jim Jarmusch. It's a week in the life of Adam Driver as a bus driver.
Okay.
Anyway, next week on podcast.
It's just like this lovely, glorious little film of Adam Driver's week in his life. He's a bus driver, but he's also a poet, and he writes poetry. And it's like him on his break writing a poem, and it's like the text will come on the screen about his life in the town of Patterson, and some famous people have there in the past. Things happen. Some things happens to him, but not major things. And he lives with his girlfriend, who's an artist. And so every day when he returns home, she's done something else to the house, and the curtains are now been painted, and the guitar's been done. He just has to go, oh, okay, that's great, honey. And then and it's just like a lovely little. It's just so. It's like, I don't know. It just totally took me over, and it's just like so much dreamlike, and the way he narrates it. Adam Driver's just awesome in everything he's in. He's just a brilliant actor. He's just like one of my favourite actors working at the moment. It's just a great little film about a guy who drives a bus. It's so like anti-cinematic as well. Like there's a bit where he's walking his dog, and this car comes up alongside him of gangsters or gangster types, and like, oh, that's a really nice dog, bro. That's a dog that like people would steal or something, and you're like, oh, that dog's gonna get nicked.
Oh, no.
And then nothing becomes of it because he leaves the dog outside the bar that he goes to. Like he's going to leave the bar and the dog's going to be gone because it's a film and we watch films and we know it's the third act and whatever. But no, the dog's there and he goes home and goes to bed. It's just and it's just like it's what started me off properly on the Jim Jarmusch train. He makes like these unique films. I loved it.
You're right. It does sound quite different from the Old Guard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds nice.
Total opposite.
No, it does sound good.
It's just this lovely little. Just watching Adam Driver as a poet.
You love a little slice of life film, don't you?
Yeah, lovely slice of life.
Go on, Kristian. Which one have you got?
Well, you mentioned it earlier as one of the ones that's been on your list and you haven't watched. I want to talk about Annihilation.
Oh. Let's go.
Back when this came out, I was very sort of anti-Netflix original. Most of the Netflix originals I'd watched TV shows and films, or tried to watch, I should say, like hadn't gripped me in any way, and I was like, there's a certain quality lost from just sort of making a film for Netflix. Netflix just seemed to make anything, and then Alex Garland, who the most famous film I can think he's done is Ex Machina.
There's chat that he directed Dread unofficially as well, I think.
Oh yeah,
apparently.
Yeah. But yeah, he was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sort of write and direct a film for Netflix, and I was like, damn it, now I'm gonna have to watch it. I really like Alex Garland, and he made Annihilation, which, to be honest, for a Netflix original is like a sort of stunning sci-fi world with like sort of it's tense all the way through as you sort of sit, you try and figure out what this sort of anomaly is, what this world is, and how everything's going to pan out. The ending is so utterly bizarre that I watched the film ended, I sat and thought about it a bit, and then I put it back on and watched it again because I needed to
The whole film or just the ending?
Just the whole film, because I needed to understand.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it totally leaves you to your own for you to interpret, and you're not really told the answers. It's for you to decide and talk about with your friends and stuff, you know.
But it has that sort of. It has what I go to Alex Garland for, which is sort of weird, sort of slowish paced mystery that builds tension and tries to leave you guessing as to what the whole message is going to be of the film, how the film is going to end. I mean, my background is the anomaly from the film. It's basically the film starts with them discussing this anomaly, and the entire film is them sending a team of people through the anomaly to try and figure out what it is, because it's slowly expanding across the planet and they need to figure out what it is and how to stop it.
Is there anything hidden behind your head that we can't see?
No, it's all just...
No, it's more like
it's
like
a
a
big
big
wall.
bubble. It's just like a shimmering, bubbly
okay.
wall that they walk
It's a
through.
big shimmering bubble. They walk into it and things just get very bizarre from there.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it for you guys, because I really want you to go off and watch it, but it like messes with the world inside is intact but altered.
Yeah, like the DNA of things within it get changed.
I think I might have seen something that's in there.
Yeah.
It's got Kristian. We won't say what it is, Kristian, but it's definitely got one of the best horror scenes in the last 10 years at least.
It's
There's one
That's a
scene that
claim.
is like, oh my god, it's brilliant, so good.
Because like I said, I've not seen it, but I feel like it was one of the first sort of like Netflix original films that came out, and people were like, this isn't just a crappy Netflix film. Like, this is an actual film that just happens to be on Netflix.
Yeah, because I was doing a quick little research on it, and I think it was made to, because when you look at it, it's a very cinematic film. I think it was made to come out in cinemas. Because in America, it was released by Paramount in some theaters, and I think it did get dumped, or Netflix bought it because it was just going to get lost. So I think Netflix kind of saved it.
Yeah. I mean, like, I was happy because, number one, it introduced the sort of Netflix sort of, the most Netflix viewers to Alex Garland and his weird cinematic world that he creates, meaning that he's gotten more up, because of course the one thing that Netflix does provide, which is quite nice, is if a film does well, it provides the filmmakers the opportunity then to be grabbed by other companies. Everyone's like, oh my god, they did something and it did really well on Netflix, quick, snatch them up now. And of course Alex Garland with Ex Machina already had that A24 mark under his belt, so he's gone on to do some more like amazing films and a TV show.
Yeah, he's a writer as well. Like, he wrote a bunch of films. I think he's worked with Danny Boyle in the past and stuff.
Yeah.
Speaking of Danny, Dan, what's your film that you've brought to the table?
Like I was going on before about how cinemas are under threat and streaming services make the whole experience feel disposable. I'm going to say something completely hypocritical here and say that streaming's actually good for film as well, in certain ways.
Yeah, indies can thrive and live.
Exactly, which is why I kind of like some of the films that have come out on streaming services for that exact reason. I've got a bit of a list, but I've settled on one, which I'll talk about. But I mean, there are a couple that I really like. There's I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which I wouldn't necessarily say I really liked that film, but I really respected the fact that like it got made because it was so weird, and it was if you're into that kind of let's do a deep dive on the symbolism or the what's really going on, the subtext and all that kind of stuff, then it's the film for you. If you're a pretentious film student type thing, you'll probably
it's
like
one
it.
of the most pretentious films I think I've ever seen.
Oh my god, so toe-curlingly pretentious.
I was like,
but,
I was just like, piss off. I was just like,
when she starts speaking like a film critic from like the 30s or something,
Yeah.
it's like, what are you doing? What's going on? This is so stupid.
Is it one of those films where the presentation of the film takes precedence over the narrative?
Yeah, I mean, like the one. I didn't really want to talk about this for too long, but it's probably worth talking about.
Yeah.
It's one of those films that, like, in retrospect, and once you realise what the story is doing, you can go back and watch again, and it kind of makes more sense. And you watch it on second time, and there's a different. You come to it with a different view of things. But really, narrative in that film isn't. It's not a traditional 3-act structure or anything. Oh, but it kind of is, but not in the way that you would expect.
Does it have like a like the thing I was getting at was like, does it have like a creative narrative, or is it just sort of like, oh, we've got a simple narrative and then we've wrapped it in cinematic?
No, it's really, really like it's very creative in how it tells its story. I mean, to kind of discuss it in detail would be sort of giving away the joy of watching the actual film. So, but in terms of how it looks and in terms of the cinematography and stuff, and the competence of the film on that level, it's really nice. It's really good to look at. It's just if you want a point A to point B to point C story, you're not going to get it with this film, and that's what I like about the film, and the fact that Netflix actually has taken a risk on this film and takes risks on independent films in general.
Can I quickly ask Danny?
Yeah.
Do you agree the best section of the film is the bit in the house?
Yes, I think so. I mean,
I was the best section.
What it was strange because I wasn't expecting them to ever leave that house.
I thought that was the film. Yeah. Yeah,
and actually, like, again, I won't go into detail about what actually happens, but yeah, it's a film that it surprised me in several ways. But yeah, that was a pretty standout section. Yeah, I thought. But anyway,
your actual pick.
my actual pick. Sorry, it's probably there's so many good films. What other films have I got? I've got Marriage Story, that was great. I've got The Irishman, another film that wouldn't have been made, without
Should
Netflix.
it have been made?
Exactly.
Was it made 30 years ago?
Yeah,
times.
it's already
By the same director.
Cast.
It's like that joke. Oh, Martin Scorsese's done his film again. Oh, brilliant!
It's like I saw a thing of someone was saying like, can people please stop paying Martin Scorsese to make the same film, only worse?
Yeah. And without Ray Liotta, he's so good in Goodfellas, and he keeps not casting him again. It really annoys me.
But the film that I've actually decided to talk about is Uncut Gems.
Okay.
Which I really, really liked. I from minute one, that film completely grabs you, and it does not let go for 2 hours, and it's actually quite a horrible experience. But it's one that by the end of it, you're glad you've gone through. But yeah, it's so strange from like that, just the pacing, the editing, the dialogue, the way characters talk over each other. There's this constant kind of feeling of chaos at all times, and Adam Sandler puts in a brilliant performance. He probably should have been Oscar nominated.
Boy, shouldn't he have? Livid.
I mean,
he
exactly.
definitely should have.
It's him and Sly. Oh, Sly not winning the whole other thing, but him and Sly deserve their Oscars.
Yeah, but again, he's one of these obscure anomalies where a rightful nominee doesn't get nominated. But yeah, he's great in that film. Everyone's pretty good, but Adam Sandler just kind of he cast perfectly, Also, the soundtrack was brilliant. I really enjoyed the soundtrack. It was like absolutely my cup of tea. Like really thick synthy sort of dark sounding stuff, and yeah, it just gave this extra texture again. Here we go to the film in general. Like I thought it was great, but yeah, I would recommend it if you can take the anxiety that is coming at you. It's an anxiety-inducing film for sure.
I think all of these films just put them on.
Yeah, you
Don't look
by
them
the
up.
end.
Just
Yeah,
put them on.
but by the end of Uncut Gems, you will have been sat in uncomfortable cold sweats for the entire 2-hour duration.
It's just
In a good way, James. In
In the best possible way. Like
the best possible way.
that film just it does, like you said, it does immediately like grip you, and it's like, and I'm not letting go. As soon as I'll let go when the credits start rolling, and even then you just sort of have to sit there and collect yourself and be like,
Yeah.
what just happened?
Like you gotta grab your own hand and rip it off there because you've got your nails embedded in the armrest.
Well, so there you have it. We've all spoken through some really great streaming films. Let's round it off by going back to the cinema with our hypothetical this week, where we've decided that the question we're each going to ask ourselves is: if you've got 12 hours, you're allowed to watch 3 films in a cinema, any 3 films ever, and you're allowed to pick one person from the cast and crew that will watch it with you, and you're allowed to talk to them during, and then you can design your seat, whatever food you want. What is your ideal cinema experience for 3 films? Does anyone want to take us away and start us off?
Well, I've just spoke for about 45 minutes straight, so maybe someone else should.
Do you want to go again, James?
take
Do you
their
want to start off?
Sure, I can start off.
Yeah, bring us in.
I'll be honest, not the most inventive or creative decisions I've gone with. Mine was more just a thing of which films do I love that I never got to see in cinemas, and who do I think would be interesting to chat to from those films. So my first one was, I just went with Back to the Future, because I've always said that if I had the chance to put on any film in a cinema, it would be Back to the Future. It's one of my all-time favourites. I never got to see it in the cinema, obviously, because I wasn't born. And I think I'd take with me Michael J. Fox, just because he seems like a really nice guy. He seems quite lovely. I'd be able to chat to him all about that. He was obviously in all 3 of them, so there's more than just that to talk to. And he's potentially one of my favourite guest stars in Scrubs, which, if we get a little bit of side time, I'd chat to him about that.
You got to talk to him about Scrubs.
Oh, he's so good in Scrubs.
You should, if this was real, you should watch him in Curb Your Enthusiasm as well. You'd love him in Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Okay, I'll add that to the list.
Yeah.
My second film was, again, not particularly creative, Return of the Jedi, just because who wouldn't want to see Star Wars on the big screen? Again, pick a film that I never got to see in cinemas, so I get to watch that. Take Mark Hamill with me, because again, he's just a lovely guy. I reckon he'd be nice. I can imagine he'd have some fun anecdotes. It'd be cool to chat to him about, when you were making the first one, did you ever imagine it was going to be this big? Talk to him about the fact that he's the best Joker ever, so that'd be cool to talk about. And the idea of transitioning between screen and voice. And then third film even, we'll round it off. This will surprise no one. I'm going to go watch Avengers Infinity War again. I'm going to take Tom Holland with me because,
of all the people.
Well, I did think there's others that might have more stories, but I was like, Tom Holland, he's our age, so it would be, an interesting perspective, maybe more similar to what we've been thinking. That idea of what was it like to, just step into this huge film, this huge franchise, what was that sort of transition like? And, if I talk to him for long enough, chances are he's going to spill some secrets to me.
I was going to
so
say,
that'd
just
be fun.
squeeze some spoilers out
Exactly,
of him,
so it'd be great. I'd get the inside scoop.
Wow. You wouldn't have Downey of all.
I did think
not
Downey.
Downey.
My only thing is, I think I might get on better with Tom Holland because Downey is so celebrity, whereas Tom Holland seems more like
A guy.
Yeah.
I think Robert Downey Jr. The reason why Iron Man works so well is because he basically just playing himself on some level.
He's a bit crazy.
I was
And then,
going to say,
I just go standard, comfy seats, big drink, probably take a Mackey's in with me.
Mackey's?
I did.
Mackey's so much.
What would you get?
Probably a triple cheeseburger, large fries, 20 chicken nuggets, and a large Diet Coke.
20
Just off the top
chicken
of my head,
nuggets.
just
The
you know.
20 chicken nuggets the 20 chicken nuggets that you meant to share, but no one shares.
no one.
No one shares.
Share with me, myself, and I.
20 chicken nuggets.
No, I was just on your Infinity War thing. I was gonna say, like, you said, why would you not take Robert Downey Jr.? Over Robert Downey Jr., I'd probably take like Chris Hemsworth or Mark Ruffalo if I was going to go
Chris
see that film.
Evans,
Mark
he's a guy.
I was just going to say
Chris
Chris
Evans
Evans
as
was
well,
maybe
yeah.
another one, just because I reckon he'd be a laugh. Like, I reckon he'd be quite funny.
Yeah, Hemsworth, Evans, and Ruffalo are all like super chill.
Maybe Paul Rudd, although he wasn't in Infinity War, but yeah.
Yeah, I think if I had to watch an event, I think I'd pick like a Hemsworth or an Evans, just to then just be like, look at their chest and just be like, like how do you look like that? Like, just want to hold his bicep and just like kind of stare in a academic purpose.
For academic purposes.
What about you, Ben? What was your choices for this?
Oh, I've got a bunch of choices. I know my main one. I know, for starters, we said one guest, and I can't do that.
We did say one guest.
I've got like 2 or 3. The biggest one I would watch Big Trouble in Little China with Kurt Russell and John Carpenter. Oh boy, that would be so much fun. I listened to the audio commentary like years ago, and it's just Carpenter and Russell pissing themselves laughing at this film, and it's also a great film, and I think they would have really great anecdotes, and Kurt Russell is just the best guy, so and I would love to kind of pick Carpenter's brain, and he always has a difficult time making his movies and good stories to tell, and Kurt Russell's just the best person ever. I just love Kurt Russell. I would watch, I think that would be in my first viewing in the morning. Then in the afternoon, I'm not bothered about snacks.
Yeah, they were all a bit secondary in mine.
I would let them pick, and I would eat what they choose because I'd be interested in what they would eat.
That's a good answer.
Chicken cottage, probably.
Yeah. Kurt Russell loves it. I would then pick. I would have the film "O Brother, Where Art Thou," and I'd have the Coen brothers and Mr. George Clooney himself, and I would watch this again. Very light-hearted, both comedies. I'd love to kind of. I don't think they would answer my questions, but to be near the Coens would be great. And George is like the best guy ever. Because my first thought was to watch Batman and Robin with him and Arnold Schwarzenegger. That would be pretty.
Oh, that would be great.
That would be pretty good.
That would be great.
That would be pretty good. And then I thought, well, since George is there, I thought, I'll get his mates Brad and Matt Damon, and we'll watch Ocean's 11 together. I'm not like the biggest I love Ocean's 11. I just want to hang out with Brad Pitt and George Clooney and
I'm sensing
Matt
a
Damon.
theme here, Ben.
I just want to hang out with these guys and just and watch like a fun,
and touch their
light-hearted
chests,
film. Yeah, just kind of be near
Just
Brad.
touches everyone.
Yeah, they're all they're fun, light-hearted. They're not because I think if I watched Return of the Jedi with Mark Hamill, I think I'd just cry the whole time. I don't think I could handle myself. But those three they're not hugely emotional, childhood films for me, so I could kind of enjoy it, and I think they would enjoy laughing at themselves.
Yeah.
That would be my day.
That's pretty cool.
I would
Solid
love
day.
that. Kurt Russell's the best.
Go on, Dan, what were your choices?
Oh, well. So, yeah, my choices. I've gone for a bit. I want variety. I want some variety. So I picked films based on, we want the roller coaster of emotions throughout the day. We got the 12 hours. We want to feel all the emotions. So, I picked an action sort of drama film. I've picked a comedy, and I've picked a sci-fi epic, shall we say? So yeah, start the day off with. I was going to pick Her, with Joaquin Phoenix, but I don't think that's a good way to start the day. I just end up not good.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna watch Gladiator with Joaquin Phoenix because, talking of emotional films, that is actually the first film that made me emotional. Bizarrely enough, at the end when the guy goes "not yet," and it's like, have you guys seen?
Yeah.
Gladiator?
I thought you'd pick Russell Crowe for because he's a bit of a boy.
Nah, I don't. Exactly.
He's also a bit of a prick, but he's a bit of a boy as well.
Exactly. You see, I think Russell Crowe would be a bit high maintenance.
He's a nice guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, he beat someone.
And Ryan Gosling.
He beat someone up with a phone.
Yeah,
Russell
he did.
Crowe.
But he's a bit of a boy.
No, to be honest though, I quite like Russell Crowe. He seems all right. but are just a bit mental and a bit high maintenance, which is fine, because aren't we all really? But like, I'd pick Joaquin Phoenix. I'd pick Joaquin Phoenix though, because he was really good in Gladiator.
Where's my coffee? Sorry.
Latte. So I'd pick Joaquin Phoenix because he played a really good part in Gladiator. He's a great villain, and I was like, yeah, this guy is pretty good. I like him, and he is probably my favourite actor, I'd say, Joaquin Phoenix. Like, I love the guy. He seems like an interesting character, and he always is fantastic in anything he's in, basically. For the second film, I said a comedy, because we want a bit, we want to laugh a little after the drama. So I picked Paddington.
little bit different.
That's glorious.
I'm not sure we can have fictional characters, but I don't care. So I'm going to invite Paddington.
Maybe
to
he'll
watch
show up.
Paddington with me. And me and him, we can just have a good little laugh.
You'd have marmalade
I was
sandwiches
just about
together.
to say, would that be a snack?
It'd be brilliant. I think it'd be the best thing ever, that. Paddington, right, not ironically, I'm not saying this ironically, storytelling-wise, is one of the best films that I've seen.
Yeah.
Like, it's so
good.
perfect.
The second
It's
one
so-
as well. Second one as well.
Yeah.
So, they're both so good.
Everything just is so... Honestly, everything about that film is perfect.
Yeah.
The look of it, the characters, the laughs, the pacing, the story, everything. I just love Paddington,
Like the
man.
perfect family film.
Absolutely,
It's for everyone.
yeah.
It is for everyone.
That is a truly timeless film right there.
Oh,
Timeless of trash.
Brilliant.
It really
What a plug.
is. So yeah, after we've done with Paddington, after me and Paddington have gone our separate ways, and he's gone back to Peruvian, I'm gonna finish the day off on a high, because I'm gonna watch The Rise of Skywalker. Right?
Oh my god.
I'm gonna watch The Rise of Skywalker.
Okay.
I'm gonna put myself through the pain. Why? Why would I do that? I'm gonna watch.
This
I'm
high
gonna watch-
IQ move.
Exactly. 200 IQ move, because I'm going to watch The Rise of Skywalker. I'm going to
Say
watch
it.
The Rise of Skywalker with George Lucas.
Spend the whole time just looking at his
I didn't
face at the
say
reaction.
Oh my god.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Like, I just want to pick his brains about like what he thinks of the whole fiasco of the Star Wars sequels, and namely The Rise of Skywalker.
I thought
just
you were
want
going to
see
say
what he
J.J.
thinks.
Abrams and like get him to explain himself.
No.
What
No,
did
no.
you
Explain
do?
yourself.
I just want to see what George Lucas thinks, because
brilliant.
he had a whole sequel trilogy planned out. His own sequel trilogy, which they completely ignored.
Yeah,
Possibly
he wanted to
with
look
good
at he wanted to look at the mini world of the midichlorians.
Yeah,
and
because
the-
like everyone loves midichlorians, right?
Yeah,
So
love
why not make 3 films about them? But I'd be really interested to see what he thought of what they did with his creation. I think we'd have a good conversation about that.
That is a
And,
great answer.
Oh yeah, that's.
And
that's-
yeah,
I
and
don't know if I can follow that.
God,
as
you
far-
keep getting shafted
Yeah,
with these,
2
Kristian. You keep
podcasts
having
in a
to
row.
follow.
I'm always. Everyone always comes to me last, and I'm like, oh, God, no.
Danny, did you come up with that like 5 minutes before we started?
yeah,
You fucking prick.
you're dealing with a genius.
I was just spat water all over my keyboard.
Spit take.
It's like last night I was sat there like, yeah, I could do that, I could do this. And he's just like nailed it.
Go on,
God.
Kristian.
Sorry, guys.
Follow that.
Yeah, I mean, mine aren't very inventive picks either, to be honest. There's maybe one. Yeah, there's maybe one that will surprise people. But I would start the day with Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, and of course I would bring in the man himself, Bruce Campbell.
That was one of my picks, and I thought I won't say it 'cause I bet Kristian.
Yeah.
said it.
I mean, I had Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox down, so we're all on the same wavelength here.
I'd watch it with Biff than anybody else. I'd watch because he's like
yeah.
so private. And I would pick. I forgot his name. Biff's name. I think his name's Tom. Sorry,
What?
Kristian.
Yeah, no, I'd bring in Bruce Campbell because I don't know, he just seems like a very fun energy to have around. I'd love to sort of pick his brain about the Evil Dead franchise, but also about everything else he's done and is planning to do, because, you know, he did Bubba Hotep, My Name is Bruce. He, of course, did all the series. He was in all of the Raimi Spider-Mans. I'd love to sort of get his insight, being a friend of Raimi's, into what happened with Spider-Man 4, because, of course, he was meant to be in it as Mysterio. And then that all just completely fell apart because of disagreements.
You never know, though. The way things are going, they're bringing everybody else back. Sam Raimi's coming back.
Bizarre.
I said if Raimi can get it done in Doctor Strange 2, I would just love a scene where it's the exact scene from the end of Spider-Man Far From Home in an alternate universe where it's Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man with Bruce Campbell's Mysterio.
Wicked.
Because that would be just a hilarious little Easter egg that he throws in there. Probably against Marvel's wishes. But it'd be a lot of fun. The next film I'd go on to is I would sort of keep the comedy going, and I'd watch Clerks on the big screen.
Of course.
With Kevin Smith.
Yeah, knew you'd pick him.
That's a good choice, right?
Kevin Smith, just he's someone that I'd want to talk to, because he always has something to say. I'd just be like, "Hi," and introduce myself, and then he'd just talk at me for the entire rest of the time we were there.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't even have to ask. He'd just give me a running commentary as we were watching the film of what was going on behind the scenes.
I'd love to watch Dogma with him, especially him and Jay and like Affleck.
Yeah.
So good.
If I had the time, I'd just sit down and I'd invite Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes, and I'd be like, right, we're going to watch all of your films. All of them.
Be good, because Jay won't remember any of them, because he was just high. So like, he'd be like, oh, this is great.
And then my surprise round off the day, I think, you know, as someone who quite likes Stephen King films, I'd watch Misery, and I'd invite in Kathy Bates.
Wow.
Because like, she really makes that film. Like, James Caan is great, and the direction and shooting is great, but she is like, if they ever remade Misery and they didn't do, you know, and Kathy Bates wasn't in it, it would not be the same film. It would not have the same impact. She perfectly portrays Annie Wilkes, and I don't know, I just want to talk to her about that and
just pick her brain for a bit.
Just she seems like someone interesting to sort of pick their brain and find out not just about that, but she's sort of gone on to do other bits and pieces in horror, but she also nails comedy. She's got such a wide range.
Brilliant,
not much more to say than
I think
great pick.
Yeah, man. I think there's some great choices in there.
Yeah.
The problem, we keep doing these hypothetical situations and talking about all this, and it's incredibly unsatisfying because we never get to do it.
I
We
know.
never get to see the films we talk about. We never get to go do what we want.
Cinemas will close. It's not going to happen. They won't let us in.
Oh God.
But I think that's all that we've got to say here from the Spacemen from Pluto podcast. So, you know, the usual. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let us know which films you'd like to go see in the cinema and who you take with you.
Also,
all the buttons.
Let
all
us know
below,
about your
just
favourite
all
streaming
the business
films.
down
If
there.
there's any we should watch.
Mank is wank. That's the headline. I'm amazed we didn't make. I'm amazed we didn't do any Mank jokes. Mank me, yeah.
I'll be honest, when you first said like, "Oh, this is a new film, Mank," I was like, "Oh, what is like about Manchester?"
Yeah. I'm amazed we didn't do any jokes about it. What
But yeah,
do
not-
you mean, mate?
And on that note, goodbye.